What's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, I'm smiling because talking season is officially underway. I am absolutely loving it. Bring on talking season. God bless this beautiful time of year. If someone tells you that July on the college football calendar means nothing, you will say, how dare you? Talking season is the absolute best. And all I want to do today is talk about talking season.
Yeah, I mean, how much of the college football diet is actually games, right? Most of it is talking. Most of it is projecting. Most of it is hopium. This is the best time of the year, especially we're talkers, man. We're here trying to tell you why your team will go undefeated, why your team is terrible, everything in between. Like, this is the best part because most of the time people forget about it, like everyone's takes by the time the season starts. So we could say whatever, sure.
And that's the part that to me is just so beautiful. And I remember things because it's my job to remember them and then call people out when their takes don't age particularly well, myself included, by the way. Like we are we try and be as much as possible. What's a nice way to say this? Acknowledgers of our off-season takes.
Accountable, if we're going to roast other people, which we do often, we're going to roast ourselves.
Exactly. And surely nobody will remember if I pick LSU to win a national championship and it doesn't work out. Like, nobody's going to remember that stuff at all.
I sure won't. I've never heard of that team in my life.
Yeah, you never talk about LSU. So what we're going to do today, we have a great pod lined up. A lot of talking season thoughts that we'll get to related to the SEC, which Media Day is coming up next week. So a little bit of a preview there. And then some of the things that have come out already from Big 12 Media Days, which are going on as we're recording this. LSU legend Matt Flynn, he is going to join us in a bit, and then we've got Lad of the Week. Before we do all of that, you guys know I've been talking about Dabble for a while now. We are in talking season, but also the dog days of the sports calendar. And
gambling season.
It is gambling season. It is, very much so. You want to be able to get a little piece of the action responsibly. Friday afternoon, baseball's on. Like, this is the time of year to be able to do it. Dabble is going to hook you up. It's one of the newest and best apps in the DFS space. They've wasted no time making a name for themselves. Dabble's social function is second to none, and they offer a wide variety of sports for making picks, including right now, Major League Baseball. Go do that. Use promo code SDS2 when you sign up today. Receive $25 in bonus cash. No deposit required. Again, that's promo code SDS2 for $25 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. All right, Will. I think that talking season, starting when it does, is fantastic. The fact that we're getting the earliest talking season on record, I believe Big 12 Media Day starting a week before SEC Media Days.
Is this like a global warming situation? Like, oh my gosh, talking season is coming sooner and sooner every year.
It is. It really is. We're going to look up and talking season is going to be in April all of a sudden. And you know what? Maybe that's going to be a little bit too early, but for now, early July is perfectly fine with me. Big 12 Media Days going on right now. We've got SEC Media Days in Atlanta next week. We will both be there. Obviously, you live there, so it's a little bit different, but we will actually both be physically there.
We're going to. I just told Connor we've already reserved our wings at Magic City. He's a big Magic City proponent, so we're excited about that. No, he's not. Just kidding, Lauren, if you're listening.
Magic City will not be on the itinerary. It will not be. I heard the lemon pepper's delicious, but it will not be on the itinerary. Okay, we can promise that. So yeah, we're gonna be covering all things SEC Media Days, as I always say. SaturdayDownSouth.com. If you're not a regular consumer of the best college football website that exists, you should be, because we're just going to have all sorts of coverage. We're going to have interviews as well that are for the pod that will be up. Will's going to be doing a lot of things on our socials. It's a great time of year. You guys know how much I love Media Days. I look forward to it probably more than any other week of the college football calendar, as crazy as it is to say that. But it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have pods, just a little housekeeping before we get going here. Will and I will be recording pods Monday and Wednesday, meaning pods will be dropping on Tuesday morning and Thursday morning. So plan accordingly for that. We got the email for the attendee list for SEC Media Days, which talking season keeps getting moved up, but the attendee list, it keeps getting moved back closer and closer to the event. I don't know why that's the case, whatever. But I was immediately fired up for what we saw. Will, what do you think the first thing I checked on the attendee list was?
Number of quarterbacks.
Close. Okay. I'm going to give you half credit for that answer.
Okay.
I definitely did look at that, but I wanted to see if Arch Manning and Diego Pavia were going to be in attendance.
There you go.
And they are. cheers to that. Both are going to be there. I think Arch will be, in terms of the spectacle, reminiscent of 2013 Johnny Manziel. I really do. I think that, and Google that picture right now if you don't have that at the top of your brain. I tweeted it out the other day. The spectacle that Manziel created in the midst of his wild offseason with what was his first media availability ever. That's the crazy thing about that too, that again, probably gets lost in the shuffle of all the Manziel craziness, is that Kevin Sumlin decides after that offseason where Johnny Manziel is just jet setting across the country, partying his tail off. Like, we're not going to have you available during your Heisman Trophy season. But you know what? After you've done all this stuff, your first media availability is this scrum. And to see the crowd that was there is just, God, it's incredible. What a different time. I wasn't there for that. I don't want to pretend that I was, but from everyone that I've talked to who was there, it was just an all-time media day scene. Arch's podium, I think, is going to be pretty similar with the amount of people that are going to be there. He has a chance to set the unofficial SEC Media Days record for most inefficient media scrum ever. And that's just in terms of crowd versus noteworthy quotes that come out of it. You know, I don't know what that ratio is. It's going to be fairly lopsided. I wouldn't expect a whole lot of great stuff to come out from Arch, and that's perfectly fine. He is a Manning after all, not exactly loaded with bulletin board material or, you know, noteworthy quotes. The total opposite of that will be Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
In every way will. He should have the second biggest crowd.
We talked about this off air too. Like, they're not bringing Eli Stowers. So like sometimes coaches kind of play themselves in that way, because a lot of people would like to talk to him, I bet.
Probably.
But not bringing him, it's like, hey, there are kind of two guys that people know on Vanderbilt, and only having one of them and it being the most popular guy, you're setting yourself up for the giant scrum that you're talking about.
I want to say like a 40% possibility in my brain that Clark Lee was going to take the path of least resistance and not bring Diego Pavia. And I'm so glad that he didn't listen to whatever that fullback Vandy mindset was that was telling him, the angel and the devil on his shoulder. One side saying, bring Diego. It'll be electric if you bring Diego. And then the other side saying, maybe we hold off on that. They are indeed bringing him. And look, it is a shame that so many of the great Diego Pavia nuggets came out in that Bussin' with the Boys interview, which everybody should go watch. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of every piece of content that they put out there. But the fact that they got Diego on the bus and he was as open as Diego could possibly be, it was great to watch. And I watched all of it, and it was very, very entertaining. But still, Diego's going to be must-see TV, knowing that there's going to be a crowd there and knowing that it's a little bit of a performance and you know, the way that he's going to come across. I was thinking about the things that have a greater than 0% chance of happening with Pavia. You ready for this list?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Greater than 0% chance that he is flanked by his brothers the entire time.
I would love that. I would talk to his brothers. That's the thing.
I would too. That would be incredible. Oh my gosh, if they made themselves available, Diego would be a one of one at SEC Media Days. And for those saying like that's not a rule, you're not allowed to do that, you're only going to be surrounded by your sports information director. That's the way that it usually works. But Alyssa Lang told us that in that production meeting that they had before the Bama game, they were kind of blown away that Diego's brothers were with him. Buddy, this isn't how this works usually, but screw it. What are they going to tell him? No.
This is like one of those Twitter theoreticals, but would you rather fight or who would win in a fight? That entire group that followed like Mob Diego of his family after that win, or the three Jokic's?
It's a good question, Will.
That's such a good question.
Just because of my love for Nashville, I'd probably go with Diego's brothers.
That's the thing. You never count them out. They're scrappy.
They are scrappy. They had themselves a time that night. No doubt about it. There is also a greater than 0% chance that Diego comes in with a cane and a crown and basically just recreating Josh Snead's Vandy SEC Shorts character, which is so funny. Every single time he would come on. Oh, I love if he just did that and it was some sort of SEC Shorts bit, wouldn't surprise me. Really wouldn't. Just lean into the character as much as possible. Also possible, he's got an elephant chain on just to troll Bama.
Mm-hmm.
Big old elephant. I'm talking like the most noteworthy thing, not quite the size of his head, but also bordering the size of his head.
Yeah.
You can get that. You can easily get something like that. A chain, but instead of it being a big, diamond crusted thing or something like that, it's actually an anchor.
Mm-hmm.
Anchor down.
Man, Vandy's branding is so sick. I could argue that a good Vandy, like imagine if Vandy was winning 11 games every year, they might have the best branding in the SEC. Take away the Vandy that and just look at the branding. The anchor is so sick, man.
Derek Mason really clung to that for a while. And for like 5 minutes, it had a moment where it was a really cool thing to be able to say. Maybe Diego's going to bring it back. Maybe he's going to lean into the full anchor mantra, the anchor down mantra. Also possible, no suit, but instead just a t-shirt that says "We Run Tennessee."
That would be
homemade.
Funny.
Yeah, something like that. Just logo of, or just the state of Tennessee, maybe a little star where Nashville is, something like that. I think everybody would get that message, wouldn't rule that out. I mean, probably another t-shirt idea that Diego, if he's not going to bust this out at media days, he'll bust it out at some point. Simply Vandy we're turnt. Vandy we're effing turnt is probably what he should really say. Don't think that's going to get the full sign off. Got to imagine at some point during the ride on the private jet that they say, Diego, let's stop at Men's Warehouse. Let's maybe not bust that one out. We don't necessarily we get it, man. We get it. But
and speaking of nods to the Bama game, though, I mean, we got the real, top flight talent, obviously, on day one. So LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Vandy, Bama relegated to day 3, right? So if he comes up and says something, what's up?
Relegated. Like this means anything.
That's right. Exactly. It's like, so if he says something or if there's some little cheeky jab he has for Bama, they got to wait an entire, dead day before they can get on and say, we're not worried about that, or give a non-answer, right?
The old Ryan Williams sledgehammer to an ant answer. Don't know that we're going to get that type of stuff, but I can't wait to see Pavia. I think it'll be reminiscent to how I felt about Cash Daniel being at SEC Media Days in 2019, which was a spectacle in and of itself. And for those that are not Cash fans, Florida fans, because of obviously what he did, I understand the context of how you feel about it. It was still electric to see Cash, who has gone full on embracing the wrestler lifestyle, what he's doing now, just a role he was meant to have. We'll have Cash on the pod at some point this year to talk about all those different things, but similar in the type of presence I think he will covet. And Diego will be one of those guys just ready to fire off takes, ready to answer every question, throwing punches, throwing haymakers. And I'm here for it. That's what media days are all about.
And really quick back to Arch, man, because honestly, these guys couldn't be more different. Because Arch kind of almost has that little bit of like Caitlin Clark to him, where it's like he doesn't. It's like he's like a normal guy. Weirdly, like as weird as his family, as weird as it sounds with his family being as famous as they are, it's like he doesn't really want the spotlight. He's not a showman, is what I'd say. He seems like a really humble, normal guy. And also, Texas is bringing 2 other players that I feel like people know pretty well, right? And Taff and Anthony Hill Jr. And so kind of opposite situations where Vandy is almost funneling everything to Pavia. And I think you're going to get, to your point, a lot of non-answers from Manning, a lot of kind of more spread, like kind of dictated coverage from Texas. So it's going to be really interesting to see those 2 guys. I love that you've keyed in on that, because the giant scrum around Pavia would be a lot more worth it, I think, than the scrum around Manning, who has been, dictating his image since he was born.
Should Arch have a cowboy hat like Quinn Ewers did last year? Some are asking.
The cowboy hats were fire last year. They had some fits. I don't know if those Dallas fits will ever repeat, because there was so much of like a theme to it.
What would be the Atlanta fit?
Oh man, big chicken hats maybe. Okay. Traffic, peaches. I see this stuff doesn't hit as hard as a cowboy hat.
See, I was thinking like early 2000s, Jermaine Dupri, Ludacris type vibes.
Dude, if everybody went giant clothes, that would be so fire, actually. If they went like 2000s or 90s rap music video, big old school chain, giant NBA draft, like 02 clothes, that would be pretty fire.
How about just embracing full Outcast?
Yep.
Andre 3000 and Big Boy, just trying to look as much as possible like them. That would be about as Atlanta as it gets, in my opinion. Don't think we'll probably see that, but I wish. But yeah, like you said, we're looking forward to quarterbacks. The fact that there's going to be 11 of 16 SEC teams bringing a quarterback to this thing, I think that's a record. Unofficially speaking,
We got more teams, so it's got to be like just maybe not percentage wise, but overall, yeah.
The ones who aren't bringing a quarterback: Alabama, Kentucky, Mizzou, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Not surprising that Kentucky, Mizzou, and Tennessee aren't bringing a quarterback. Given maybe Mizzou could have brought Bo Prabula, and we would have not really thought anything of it, but not really a stunner. Probably more noteworthy that Bama and Texas A&M aren't bringing a quarterback. Surprised
this is
that
really
Marcel
diabolical stuff out of DeBoer. I thought that we couldn't get more boring than Nick Saban, but we don't have Ryan Williams. We don't have a court.
Yeah.
We just have some dudes out here for Alabama. They're great dudes. They're going to be great players. But give me Ryan Williams spent all offseason kind of just going through this side quest, and now it's well, we got to be professional and handle business. No, bro, come on.
Yeah, Ryan Williams gets to be on the cover, the youngest person ever on the cover of college football video game, and we instead don't get to see him at media days, which is fine. It is what it is. I get it. You don't want to bring a 17-year-old to media days. Just kidding. He's 18. But there are still going to be people that are kind of oh, why not bring Ty Simpson, even though he's involved in a quarterback battle? Technically, I guess they're still going to carry that out into fall camp. I'll be surprised at this point if Ty Simpson isn't the starter. Whatever, make of that what you will. Probably more noteworthy that Marcel Reed's not going to be there. I don't think that means he's all of a sudden locked into a battle with Jacob Zeno, who is entering year 7, the former UAB quarterback. Yeah, that's right. That's still a name in college football. 2019 recruit. That's the territory we're in with some of these guys. I don't think that means Marcel Reed's going to be in a battle. Marcel Reed is the starting quarterback for Texas A&M, but just after how back and forth Elko was with the quarterback situation last year, just file that one away. Just file that one away. I'm not saying it means the leash is shorter, but just okay, add it to the list of things to remember about this A&M season if it does go haywire.
Well, look, when you have a chance to bring Armaj Reed Adams, a guard, you got to do it.
Going to be a first-round guy potentially. I get it if you want to get those guys showcased. I think that's become more of a priority with something like Keldrick Fall coming for Auburn. And obviously he's a leader and a big part of that team who's been, playing significantly for the last 2 years. But when you kind of have some of these guys that are in that first round conversation, like Caden Proctor, you want to get them in these opportunities, and you don't want to have teams that are asking, oh, why didn't you showcase them in front of the media and, this sort of way, and have to answer that question from scouts. So I get that to a certain extent. I think that's been a little bit more prioritized in recent years, at least the way that I've been following it. But yeah, it would be nice to just automatically have the most electric players for every single team that are going to be there. That won't necessarily be the case this year.
Yeah, and I get it for Tennessee. I mean, if I were Heupel, I would just revert to full communism and not give any player any individual power. Just be like, look, we're bringing those specialists here. You guys are not allowed to be on social media. We're going to put a whole lockdown on this because I don't want you guys thinking you're worth $20 million a year or anything. Okay.
A&M bringing Braden Mann, Hunter, a few years back. Love that. Let's get a Holder at SEC Media Days.
There you go.
I would just sit there and a Holder or a long snapper. So my daughter, she's trying to figure this skill out. What do you got for me?
Yeah.
I'd be the person sitting there for 20 minutes. People would look over and be like, Connor, what are you doing?
Yeah, jokes on them. I wish someone would do that because nerds like us would be sitting there like, so how does your job work actually? Can you just give me a run through what you do on a daily basis?
Give me your practice, start to finish. Give me your off-season lifting program. What do you do to better your skills in the off-season besides the exact skill that you're doing? Are you doing finger dexterity things? What do I need to pass down to my daughter for her to be able to get on your level? Just give me all that information. Look, I'd be here for it. But yeah, I think it's telling that there are a bunch of other places that are bringing new starting quarterbacks. We're talking about Arch. Arch is going to be there, technically a new starter, even though he started a couple of games last year. Gunnar Stockton for Georgia, just in case there was any doubt about Kirby Smart's confidence in him. There's not at this point. Austin Simmons getting the nod from Lane. That's somewhat significant. College graduate, Austin Simmons. The new Ryan Williams is 17. Austin Simmons is a college graduate at 19. Jackson Arnold, going to be there for the second time in as many years, albeit with a different team. Looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
The Oklahoma media doesn't get enough credit for how big their numbers are. Jackson Arnold is going to have just all Oklahoma people around him. He might actually end up having the second biggest media contingency, even over Pavia. That's a bold prediction going into media days week.
Yeah,
And
I'm
then,
disgusted they didn't put Auburn and Oklahoma on the same day. That would have been so delightfully awkward.
yeah, I mean, awkward in some ways, but maybe not. Like, oh, Jackson Arnold passes Brent Venables in the hall. Love to get unfiltered Jackson Arnold opinions on Brent Venables. Don't know that we're going to get that at SEC Media Days. John Mateer, the guy who's taking Jackson Arnold's place, he is going to be there representing Oklahoma as a new starter, a guy that we've talked about a lot this offseason. So yeah, 11 quarterbacks that are going to be at SEC Media Days. That's going to dominate the conversation. Fully expect the other big topic of conversation to be Sankey's opener on Monday. Playoff expansion, new era of the sport with revenue sharing. That's going to be really, really popular. Well, I got to say something here. I get the significance of it. I know it's our job to talk about it. But part of the reason that I'm so excited for talking season to be underway is because I am so sick of talking about revenue sharing things and non-football things with this sport. I'm ready to discuss whether or not I think a defensive end is going to maximize his potential if this quarterback that I saw in a limited sample size last year is going to be the real deal. I'm ready for all those conversations. Is this coach going to be able to survive this season? Like those are the types of things that get me up off the couch on a Saturday morning and get me fired up and ready to do this. The other stuff, not as much, but I get it's going to be talked about a ton.
Yeah, and you talk about kind of the opening statement. I mean, especially with the two new teams, we saw that for the first time last year in Dallas with Oklahoma and Texas, right? But it almost feels like, like the Pope or something when Sankey talks, because every part of his image is so clearly maintained. And that's why I talked about them doing the weird thing where they flip the schedule and change the home and away. Because I'm like, that's so uncharacteristic of Sankey. Everything else he does is so well kind of manicured, and he shifts the conversation kind of with that address every year. So it's like an underrated part of what happened, I think, at Media Days, because all of the consumers look at the players and the coaches and all that. But really, some of the most actual kind of data we get is from what Sankey says and from what he doesn't say. If he's not willing to really confidently address something, you're like, okay, something's going on back there,
Over under 12 seconds before Sankey says talking season.
It might be just in the intro line. He usually does a little quip like that,
Spurrier not trademarking that. He didn't, did he? I don't think he has.
We need to just look up Steve Spurrier trademarks, because I bet there are a ton that he could have. I don't know. I'm sure plenty of people have trademarked Steve Spurrier things, which is sad, because I don't think he really had an eye for that type of trying to hoard the money.
Yeah, you can trademark a coach's go-to phrase and get away with it if you're not paying attention closely enough. We don't need to go down that road. That's a different story for a different time that I'm not advised to speak about on public airwaves. We've got big time talking season things that already came out from another commissioner already. Big 12 Media Days in Jerry World, Brett Yormark. He did his best Jim Phillips imitation, and I salute him for it. I really do. Last year, Jim Phillips, if you recall, something we talked about on the pod, he claimed that the ACC had, quote, the most exciting collection of teams in the country. And he argued one of the reasons for that was because no other conference had more preseason Dodd Trophy watch list coaches than the ACC. He failed to mention that while that's true, it was tied with the SEC, who had guys like Kalen DeBoer who weren't eligible because they were at a new school. Also, by the way, just don't expect Jim Phillips to say that this year, because the ACC only has 4 coaches on the preseason Dodd watch list. The SEC has 8. The Big 10 has 5. The Big 12 has 5. We don't care about that as much as he does. Back to
you. Is Belichick eligible? He's not changing teams.
New school, not eligible.
I can't wait for that Media Days. Thank you for reminding me, because I think he has to go. I mean, every coach goes, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to be electric. That's the first time he's had to speak in a while.
Yeah, unless you're Deion Sanders and dealing with a health issue. I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago. I don't remember when it was. But there are very few exceptions. Coaches are usually going to be there. But yeah, Yormark claimed on Tuesday that he believes that the Big 12 will be the, quote, deepest college football conference in America, and that he expects the Big 12 to earn multiple playoff bids this year. Here's the problem with that Talkin season quote. I'm not one to sit here and rip all Talkin season quotes because, man, it makes the world go round. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I am a Big 12 fan, a supporter, I believe it is America's conference.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel inclined to say just a few things about that. As much as I want everybody to have their own Big 12 team, it is a conference that if you don't have a team, you should just pick one and just ride the waves of it. It is the closest thing that we still have in college football to Pac-12 After Dark. Embrace all things craziness with the Big 12. The problem is that you can't claim your conference is going to be, quote, the deepest in America when your only playoff team last year was ranked number 12 in the first year of the 12-team playoff. And in the 10 years of the 4-team playoff, your conference was 1-6 with the lone win being followed up by 65-7. You remember this.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize for saying this before, but even if you wanted to pretend that didn't happen, even though you're talking about competing for a title for the first time in 20 years, you'd probably have to ask yourself why the NFL didn't care about the Big 12's depth enough to have at least an average of 2 players drafted per team. Yeah, 31 players drafted in a 16-team conference. Not great, especially when the SEC had 79 players drafted in a 16-team conference. But also, if the conference is so deep, Brett, you are Mark, ask yourself this. Why did it fail to have a single one of its 16 schools in the top 25 of the talent composite rankings last year? That's tough. That's tough. Recruiting rankings, overrated, right? Like, let's, we don't need to get into 4-star, 5-star. I don't care. 5-star hearts. That's all that matters to me. The Big 12 having a 5-8 record against other power conference teams last year, not great. Doesn't suggest depth. Does that matter? I don't know. Depth, parity, you could confuse them for each other.
Mid.
Sure. Let's throw them all in there.
Conference of mid, yes.
Just pick out any word you want and just plug it in. The conference commissioner, Mad Lib, he certainly did that. By the way, the SEC was 13-7 against other power conferences in the regular season, but the SEC is dead. I love that conference commissioners say this stuff in talking season and they pretend like we don't have any sort of data to check them on it.
I'll say this too really quick, though. I think, okay, you got to assume the assignment here, okay? But I think Yormark's the second best commissioner in college sports. I mean, honestly, it's not even close to me. I think there's a tier gap between him, Sankey, and whoever you
Tony
put
Petitti.
third.
Tony Petitti gets love, but Jim Delaney's the one that built the Big Ten into what it is today with all the TV deals that he lined up. No, yeah, Tony Petitti, Big Ten commissioner. Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I would probably give Brett Yormark the higher mark because of what he did to pivot. I mean, what he did to pivot post Texas Oklahoma departure is remarkable. It should be taught in college football realignment 101. It's fantastic.
It's nuts. If you look at the assignment they were given, which is that it's you and basically a couple other conferences that have a huge edge on you, and you need to just be the last one standing. And it's like the ACC, they're all just kind of chained together, like unwillingly. The Pac-12 obviously is dead, and they reap their awards. And so, they have a real case to be the best basketball conference. Not worth getting into right now, but he's just kind of packaged up all these kind of junk bonds of teams and been like, here you go. And I mean, good for him. Like, we were doing this thing the other day with my UCF buddies where it's like, hey, give me the most recent Big 12 national champion. Funny enough, none of them said UCF, so do with that what you will. But point being,
2005 Texas is the last one, and then if you're talking about the current Big 12, it's 1990 Colorado is the one that's Yeah.
That's exactly, So
that we always bring up,
they had the fifth down. You can start talking about there was a split title, but it's like when you look at the assets they have and what they've been able to do with those assets, I'm blown away. So to me, it rings a little bit different than the ACC situation where the ACC has kind of had 2 or 3 bigger teams over the years. Everyone else has just kind of failed expectations. Well, with the Big 12, it's like, this is new and fun. Like, we could be anything you want. It's a mystery box,
But they don't embrace that in the way that I wish they would.
That's a really good point, though. Like, they're not the goofy. They don't want to be the goofy conference.
Yormark at least has not embraced that in the way that I think it's just sitting right there at a time when so many people are sick of hearing about the money that the Big Ten and SEC are bringing in. And, oh man, like, look at this, the recruiting rankings, look at this school and this school. If they had just simply leaned into, we're the purest form of college football that's left.
Yep.
That sells. That I get behind. That you get average fans that are like, hell yeah, sign me up for some Big 12. I want to watch BYU and Houston duking it out. Like, this is the type of world that I want to be living in as a college football fan, instead of everything else that's going on in the sport that feels like it's taking the fans for granted and all these different things. But instead, you have quotes like this that make us go, well, you're not doing that. You're not doing what you say you're doing. And instead, it feels like you're actively going in the opposite direction. Like, one of the ways that they're not embracing that, doing away with the Big 12 media pool.
I was just about to say that is coward stuff. I will just say I will dump on that forever, bro. Because at the end of the day, that just makes your conference look deeper when a team in Arizona State that nobody saw coming wins it. That literally adds to your narrative. So you're right. Actually, that's a really good critique, because it's like, yeah, we're viewing you as this goofy conference, but you're not doing it's just by default, and you're almost pushing away from it. Yeah, dude, let everyone be wrong. That's the point of having a quote unquote deep conference.
Right? And Yormark argued that it hurt the conference because the team, Arizona State, that was picked to finish last ends up finishing first. And instead, it's this perception of, oh, your conference is so winnable. That team didn't have any talent. We all know that happened. We all know, like, you can look at all these different schools and understand the preseason conversation. And does that mean anything in the grand scheme of things to have a media poll? No, but you going so far in the opposite direction to be like, hey, we're the serious conference. We don't want to have like any sort of preseason conversations like that, dictate how our conference is being talked about. Come on, what are we doing here? And I guarantee, like, as much as Kenny Dillingham said, we don't care about it, rank us in the top, rank us at the bottom, rank us in the middle, I don't care. He definitely played that card at least once last year.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun. And you can bring it up on every single broadcast, every single time. And that's entertaining. That's, people sign up for that. That's the type of ride that people want to be a part of. And instead you look at it like, oh, well, it just showed that our conference was being disrespected and that we weren't as good as people thought we were going to be. Look at the odds on FanDuel and tell me that you're going to change that perception.
That's the thing. Yeah. And like, we all remember the Cam Newton year, right? Where it's like, hey, like, everyone was wrong. This was dope. Like, I don't know. Like, so serious conferences embrace being wrong in that way.
2007 season, which we'll talk about with Matt Flynn. The craziest year in the history of the sport is the year that most fans go back to and say, that's when I was having the most fun, when all of these elite teams would lose and nobody knew what was going to happen. And you had teams like USF that were number 2 in the country and Rutgers and whatnot. Like, these are the things that we hold on to so tightly as college football fans that it just seems foolish to not want to embrace that. But yeah, by the way, 5 teams between plus 600 and plus 650 to win the Big 12 is hilarious. That is incredible. That does not happen. I just wish the Big 12 was a touch more self-aware in the way that all of their realignment moves said that they were going to be. And maybe the time will come when they can truly embrace that. I know you're trying to fight for playoff spots. I know you're not going to sit here and say like, yeah, we're inferior compared to the SEC and the Big 10. I know you're not going to come out and say that, but the purest brand of college football that was sitting right there, right there. And instead you go in a different direction. Well, you know who I also wish had just a touch more self-awareness from the Big 12?
Who's that?
Mr. Scott Frost, buddy. The
famously aware human, so I get it.
Any sort of last hope I had that he was going to approach this thing with just a drop of self-awareness, it's gone. It's gone. That was unbelievable. The Talkin season quote that I first saw from Chris Vanini on Tuesday at Big 12 Media Days. It's the type of quote that makes you realize some people are just living in their own world. It's the George Costanza line about it's not a lie if you believe it. You know, Scott Frost was asked about what he learned from his time at Nebraska. And he started it by saying, quote, "Don't take the wrong job."
Good advice. Okay.
Agreed to a certain extent. We'll get to that in a second. He also added that I wouldn't leave UCF unless it was someplace you could win a national championship. I got tugged in a direction to try to help my alma mater and didn't really want to do it. It wasn't a good move. I'm lucky to get back to a place where I was a lot happier, close quote. A ton to unpack with just the ultimate revisionist history quote.
Sounds like you don't think you won a national championship either.
Good point, Will. Good point. in theory, as you mentioned, don't take the wrong job is good advice. If you just see that quote from a random coach, good advice.
Yeah.
Understandable. There are certain places where you could have bad alignment and you're doomed before you ever set foot on campus. Okay? We don't need to go down the Brian Harsin road again. Maybe the wrong job for Brian Harsin in hindsight. I have had, on a personal level, I've had opportunities to leave this company during the 10 years that I've been here. And each time I've thought, you know what?
I'm really going to miss
the wrong
Will.
job for me. Say it again.
You thought you're really going to miss Will. He stayed. Thank you.
First of all, there are times in which you haven't been in this company, in which other opportunities have come up. But
I also left the company. It's a good point.
You literally left the company at different points. But totally, yeah, obviously. But each time, like, something has come up, I've thought, you know what? That's the wrong job. And ultimately, I am still at a company that hired me a decade ago when I was living in central Nebraska, driving 50 miles each way past Scott Frost's childhood hometown of Wood River, Nebraska. It's because of that, as well as my time living in Orlando, that I feel perfectly inclined to weigh in on this, Will. I don't want to call myself a Scott Frost expert, but I am at least a Scott Frost understander of a lot of different things, because I remember when all of this was bubbling to the surface back in 2017, and UCF fans were like, why would Scott Frost leave an awesome place like Orlando with theme parks and whatnot to go back to Nebraska? There's nothing there. Quality of life. And
you having just left Nebraska for Orlando, hold on. I've got some things to say about this.
Feel like I am one of the very few people that could actually understand both sides of that argument. Lincoln's lovely. Lincoln's a lovely place. There were rumors that his wife never wanted to leave. And from all accounts, Frost really did love UCF and wasn't going to leave for the Florida job, which apparently was just sitting there for him.
Sure.
And he didn't really have much interest in it. And okay, I can kind of understand that. He was only going to leave for Nebraska. Kind of that's what was coming out then. It's what he's using to be able to talk about now, whatever. But holy crap, that quote is a bunch of holy crap. Frost said that he was tugged. I'm putting that in air quotes for the audio only audience. Tugged by his alma mater. Dude is acting like he was talked into another round of shots by his buddy at the bar, and not having Tom freaking Osborne saying, come home. In Nebraska, it is Tom Osborne and God in that order. Okay.
Yep.
That is greater than a call from God in that state. It just is. He was so pained by the decision that he accepted the job well before that regular season finale. I knew someone really well who worked at UCF. And at the time, like, he told me a week before that game, Scott Frost has already told his entire staff they're coming with him to Nebraska. This is done. It is understood in that building. This is happening. And it's just Nebraska is going to wait until after he has that final regular season game to be able to announce it. I think Brett McMurphy reported that at halftime or something like that, and it started to trickle out. It was the worst kept secret in the world. And I say that because if I get breaking news, it's the worst kept secret in the world. All right. Like, I'm not pretending like I had some inside scoop that nobody else had. No. Like, everybody knew it at the time. Okay. So miss me with the I was being tugged part of that Talkin season quote. That dude was the prodigal son who got a hero's welcome, plus all the booster support that one can possibly have. He got so much booster support, Will, that they kept him for year 5, even though he started off 15-29. Okay? That dude was 0-13 against ranked teams. He went 5-22 in one-score games. He'd constantly throw players under the bus after losses. He was too busy caring about players wearing hoodies instead of looking in the mirror and having any sort of accountability whatsoever. But sure, it was the job that forced him to become the worst version of himself. And that's the other worst kept secret in Nebraska. Anyone will tell you. And I'll leave it at this. His personal life was in shambles because of the decisions he made. Okay? The job wasn't the reason why he made bad decision after bad decision. And no, I'm not just talking about why he wouldn't hire a special teams coordinator. Okay? You even had Nebraska willing to cheat for him when he had illegal COVID workouts, and then a year later they leak it to the NCAA just because he was finally starting to lose support in that building of like, let's kind of get ahead of this one, and they definitely leaked that to the NCAA. we can all agree that Nebraska is not set up to win titles like it was in the 20th century. The fact that everyone figured out that you should recruit nationally and, oh, by the way, you should lift weights and not assume it's going to stunt your growth. People kind of caught on to the Nebraska model, and it has since been copied and replicated in much better ways, in ways that Nebraska could not keep up with. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Nebraska is about to win national titles, but man, you literally went 13-0 at UCF, and we're told, no, you cannot win a national championship. So I don't get why you're pretending like you left a place with limited upside, even though you had the Big Ten West schedule, whatever. Now Scott Frost has the worst team in the Big 12, and I don't need a media poll to tell me that. Okay, that's the Connor Big 12 media poll telling you that. He's a clown.
Which is like Gus Malzahn's fault. Like, to be clear, that's true. Not on him. But it will be soon.
It will be soon. And when he can't figure it out and he inevitably starts throwing people under the bus and he blames the job and the ways of college football just aren't working out for him, get ready for it, because he is a clown. He is an absolute clown to come out with something like that. I have never seen someone lack such self-awareness during talking season to say something like that. Diego Pavia talking about leading Vandy to national championships is more self-aware than Scott Frost saying that he took the wrong job and all these things about being tugged in this direction. Good Lord, miss me with that. I look forward to watching him fail and blaming other people throughout that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just revisionist history, right? Because, if you win a couple more close games, I mean, he probably had the most job security outside like Brian Ferentz in college football based on the what he put in. I mean, he was...
that's a great Brian Ferentz reference, Will.
Facts, right? He was getting like rope based on stuff that happened as a player in the 90s and stuff. It's like he didn't do anything to prove that he could actually win a close game ever. They just kept... I don't know if they extended him necessarily, but you kind of have to if you...
He had an extension at the end of year 2.
Yep,
that Bill Moose gave him. And Bill Moose, who had his own personal demons that he was working through, admittedly so, he came out and admitted, we just did that to try and get some recruiting momentum.
Yeah,
in November, and we're just trying to really hit on something late. And even though we knew it wasn't earned, we just thought, screw it, we'll do it. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. None of it was earned, right? So it's like, hey, everybody talks about, I want to go back home. Like, Harbaugh got closer to getting fired, I feel like, than he did until the very end, where Harbaugh had that weird game against Rutgers and everybody was soured on him.
Was terrible. Yeah.
Fans obviously were pretty out on him, but the administration, to your point, was ready to just chain themselves to Scott Frost and get hit by a trade if that's what it took. And so I don't know, you really can't say you were given a raw deal here, because Matt Rule comes in and immediately builds his first class NIL facility, immediately gets Raiola, immediately just makes Nebraska look at least kind of respectable, right? Just not a laughing stock. So it's not like they're poor. You're essentially calling them poor and disorganized, where in reality, they were incredibly aligned on you, and they've looked rich as heck since then, and they gave you this dream deal to come to leave UCF. So, I think we could all kind of look back and say, hey, it was a no-brainer to go to a power conference job that is your alma mater, that has all this history. When Tom Osborne called, that was a great decision to make for your personal life at that time. You handled it terribly, dog. You screwed up. You need to look within yourself. And that's the problem, is that I don't see any, looking in the mirror moment here. And coming from Gus Malzahn, maybe the least look in the mirror coach in college football history. It's like, guys, you can't have another guy who's over here just trying to pee on your leg until he gets rated, basically.
Well, I don't like to always speak in absolutes. I probably do it a little bit too often. And if people are sick of hearing me talk in absolutes, I apologize. But I don't know that I have ever seen a coach at a job where the fan base wanted it to work more than Scott Frost at Nebraska. And we're talking about a fan base that has had a sellout streak since the Kennedy administration. Okay.
Yep.
And took so much pride in that and was selling tickets to charity organizations to be able to make sure that they kept this streak alive. Yeah, that's a dirty little secret too. And they would do these things because, God, they wanted it to work. They wanted it to work so badly. And in this era of college football, which, Scott Frost was fired before we really got into the true NIL era. So I'm not saying that it's the same as what it is right now, but that support and having that type of booster backing is kind of everything. And he had it in spades. It doesn't mean that they had national championship upside. Okay. But this notion of the job drove you to those things. No. Miss me.
Over COVID too, man. I mean, look at like Louisiana turning on Coach O. Look at Florida turning on Mullen, who did all that stuff with Tebow and had them competing for New Year's Six Bowl. Like I'm looking around at college football, I'm like, bro, look how COVID just changed everything, and fan bases and administration specifically got soured on guys overnight. It's like you didn't have any of that, did you? Wow, lucky you were, honestly.
Unbelievably lucky. And to sit here, I hope Nebraska never lets him back in the state. I hope when he tries to go back home to Wood River, Nebraska, I hope people are like, nope, can't get in. We're on the border right here. You could stay in Iowa. Oh, you want to fly in here? We're gonna check you. We're gonna check you in Omaha. You're gonna drive to Lincoln, fly into Grand Island. Nope, none of those are gonna work. We're not going to allow you any opportunities.
Like kind of at the border and be like, hey, guess what? Your coaching tenure didn't happen. Your coaching tenure didn't happen. You're Scott Frost, the player. That's it. We're not going to talk. Zero questions about this. If someone asks you about being a coach here, just look at them like they have three heads and be like, I'm just a quarterback. I don't know what you're talking about.
Dude, miss me with that.
Yeah.
That dude sucks. Okay. I don't say this often about a coach. That quote was so bad. So bad. But man, I'm just glad that we're back in a place where we can say this. Back in a place where talking season is just in full swing. It's a great time of year, Will. We embrace this time of year. We do.
And the Big 12, it's such a great fit, right? Because we talked about that they should be taking themselves less seriously. He should be going back to UCF, having fun, like the Spirit Splash, having the Ducks, having all the traditions come back. But he's like talking about how he was given, it was a conspiracy in Nebraska. Their media day is out there in Dallas this year because the SEC pushed it, like basically made them want to not compete last year. Their media day, it looks like a high school graduation. It's like inside of a stadium. I don't know why they do it that way. I guess
Jerry World, thing. Make it feel bigger than it is. I don't hate that.
Yeah, it's just like, it just feels different from the SEC. And then you brought up the Big Ten is in Vegas, which I immediately thought, wow, my actual personal hell is being stuck in the traffic, heading to the Vegas airport, surrounded by Big Ten media members who are going 10 under. So like, hey, man, it's just a fun season, a fun, weird season of this sport that's so inclusive to just this sport.
My personal hell is MCO, where I will be on Sunday flying to ultimately, though, Paradise, because that is what Media Days is for me. And I look forward to it so much every single year. So my personal hell, it is worth getting through to get to that place. And I look forward to being there for full-on talking season next week. Again, tons and tons of coverage we're going to have on SaturdayDownSouth.com. I cannot wait for it. Lots and lots of great stuff coming down the pipeline. All right, let's kick it to a guy that you hold very near and dear to your heart, Will. Matt Flynn. Matt's been doing a bunch of things since he retired from the NFL a decade ago. MyHy is his liquid hydration company that he started. Check out drinkmyhy.com if you're someone who suffers from dehydration like Matt did throughout his career, or you're just looking to change up how you do summertime. Matt is also now co-hosting Off the Bench with Hester, ESPN Baton Rouge, replacing T-Bob there. And I'm sure many people who are listening to this have heard Matt on there and getting him to talk about old stories and stuff like that. A fun new chapter for them and what they're doing. So we talked about some of that, LSU stories. Ryan Perrilloux, of course, gets mentioned. Obviously he would. And just a little heads up. I know that in the beginning, Matt's audio is a touch shaky. We powered through. We worked through it. I promise the audio gets better. So here is Matt Flynn. I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is a first-time guest, in fact. It is Matt Flynn. Matt, I was on with you and Hester earlier before we recorded this, and we were like, I was just trying not to call you T-Bob at every single instance, despite the obvious similarities between you two. But you and Hester being reunited after T-Bob left for Barstool, it is cool to see. And for those of us that obviously know the connection, have been watching you guys together for a while, it is great to be able to see this. Who recruited you harder, though, Hester or Nick Saban?
Oh man, that's a solid question. It was funny so I've been going on the radio, probably 7 years since Hester moved from Shreveport to Baton Rouge to do nighttime radio. I've been coming on with him for at least once a week. So ever since then, I've been doing even with Hester and T-Bob in the morning. I was doing at least an hour or two with him every week. So I wasn't like completely new to this whole situation, but I got done one day. This was, I think, mid or late April. And Hester's like, "Hey man, can I talk to you? Can I see you for a second?" And he's like, Bob might be doing something. He might be doing having another opportunity. He said, "How would you feel about stepping in and being the full-time co-host?" And I just like belly laughed at him. I was like, "Yeah, right. I don't think so." Just because I got I got kids, I got business and all these things. I'd never even thought about doing this full time. It never even crossed my mind that it's an option for me to do that or a path that I would even entertain. And so I just kind of laughed. I laughed. I made some off comments, like, jokingly, man, you can't afford me, blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of walked off. But I got to my car and I started thinking about it. And I was like, why not? Let's entertain this. Let's come up with a pros and cons list. So my wife and I, we started thinking about it, and we really couldn't think of anything that was holding me back from doing it besides the fact that I don't like to wake up early, and I'm going to wake up and do a morning show at that point. So that was a little bit of a life changer there for me. But other than that, man, I diving into more sports is a little bit more time consuming for me. But like I operate a business. I started a business about 8 years ago. And honestly, the radio's from 7 to 10. We get done at 10. I'm not missing too much of my normal day-to-day work day. And my businesses were kind of at a point where I could do this and free up a little bit of time. So, man, it just worked out and it's been a blast. We've only started in June, so I guess I can't like talk too much yet about like how it's going well until we get into it. I'm sure about like month 7, 8, 9 is going to be some mornings where I'm like fighting my alarm clock a little bit. But look, it's been great, man. It's me and Hester, of course, we go way back, and I don't think I would have said yes to doing it with anybody except for him.
It's, it is such a different world to be in now and to be on that side regularly and to know that you're going to be having new experiences. You're doing this at the best time of year for you too, where you get to pick it up and LSU baseball wins a national title and that's supposed to be the dead time of year. And then
Right,
you're
right,
you're,
right.
you're going to get the SEC Media Days experience, which Hester was kind of having me give you like the rundown of what to expect. And I basically just said, keep your
Yeah,
head on a swivel. It's a wild
yeah.
experience. Have your own takes, kind of stick to them. Don't necessarily like go in there not really knowing how you feel, and then people can kind of talk you into things, but just kind of know where you stand. Like how Hester is so pro Mizzou, like just have your thing
Right, right, right.
that you can
Yeah,
keep coming back
exactly.
to.
Because I'm just gonna go back to it.
Yeah, do you want to like workshop some takes with me? Like, do you want to say like, oh,
Yeah.
Harold Perkins should be used on offense actually, and maybe less as a linebacker, like anything. Just feel free to throw
Heard
them
it
at
through the
me.
grapevine. That's right. I want to go back to what you said about how I started at the perfect time. Let me tell you something. Like I started on June 1, and LSU, I believe it just maybe it was right before I can't remember if the Super Regionals was the weekend leading up, or the Regionals was the weekend leading up to that, or was the weekend of my first day on the job. Um, and should be a pretty easy time to like find some topics during a dead period, except I don't know anything about baseball. I hadn't watched a pitch or a swing all year, and we're talking I got to do radio to LSU fans who are diehard, the biggest baseball fans ever. So you got me going on there absolutely making a fool of myself trying to like find things to talk about. And of course we keep winning, so I'm studying as much as I can. I'm watching as much like old like TV tapes of games. I'm trying to learn the names. I'm trying to do this and that. And every day it's like 3 or 4 baseball guests on there. And I'm like, what do I ask these people? Like I've always been the person that's getting asked the question. I've never been a guy like formulating and trying to guide a conversation, which, Jacob's like an absolute pro, right? So he's a great guy to lean on when he can tell, like, if I don't have anything, I'm like, hey, bud, like, you got to take this thing. So I'm not really leading the conversations or show just yet. I think that's all about just repetitions, right? So, I mean, you would know it better than me. It's all about repetitions in this world of getting comfortable, just like the little like professionalism things of things I never even thought about. Interviewing somebody, doing like ad reads, doing like coming in and out of breaks and segments and things like that. Things just like, I'm not going to say fluff, but like just filling air time. Like when things aren't going, you don't have necessarily like a thought formulated completely in your head, but you got to fill airtime. All those things that are there. But it's funny that you say that about baseball because I was struggling for the first couple of weeks trying to find some stuff. So now we're going to get into my comfort zone a little bit more with football.
Okay, so your comfort zone is knowing what an LSU national championship team looks like. What can derail this LSU team from winning a national championship?
Oh man, I don't think there's anything that's real glaring to me that um that they're going to have to deal with and really like pinpoint as, man, we got to avoid this, we got to avoid these traps. I mean, every championship team, no matter how many 5 stars talented you are, whatever it is. Every championship team has to have good fortune. So you have to have good fortune on the injury front. Things have to go your way. You got to get some calls. There's not a team out there that's won and made a run through a conference like the SEC that hasn't had something go their way. Now, that being said, you have to take the advantages you get. So when something does go your way and goes against the other team, you have to be able to take advantage of it. So if a mistake happens or a call goes your way in a game, you got to be able to take advantage of it. But yeah, I would say stay healthy is the big thing. I mean, we did such a great job in the transfer portal, Brian Kelly and the staff. We bring back so much talent at the wide receiver. Garrett Nussmeier, he speaks for himself. I mean, everybody has awoken to how good Garrett Nussmeier is, and how good he can be. So now we're going from year 1 to year 2. And that's always the jump at the next level in the NFL on a rookie quarterback. The year 1 to year 2 jump is always the biggest, widest gap that they can jump in their career. So if it doesn't happen in that 1 to 2 year, it likely won't happen or might not happen. But we're going in from year 1 as a starter to year 2. Now there's so many things that he did well on. There's little improvement that he can do in a lot of the things, because he make so many NFL reads, NFL throws, big time things that, you're not going to improve on those. It's just getting more consistent with them, eliminating the bad plays, a little eliminating lulls in a game that extend for multiple series, kind of like we had in the second half against Texas A&M last year. And then of course we got to play good defense. I think Blake Baker, our defensive coordinator, is one of those guys that defenders want to play for. He commands energy from those guys. They want to go out and play hard. They're going to play with their hair on fire. And they're more talented at each position this year than they have been on defense since Brian Kelly's been there. So this is kind of the put up or shut up year, I think, for as far as the defense goes. So they have the talent, they have the coaching staff. Now we got to go prove it. So a lot of that good fortune, the injuries. I mean, everybody's going to deal with injuries all over the country, every single team. So got to have that. But this is the year where, hey, there's no more excuses out there. They got to go perform. And I believe that they have the team DNA, the team chemistry, the team leadership, which is so important, to get it all done. Everything that they want to accomplish, they can accomplish. Now they just got to go do it.
Take me back to your recruitment, because you're a Texas kid, and I know your recruitment was, you had all these schools coming in from all over the place, but Nick Saban makes a 5-hour drive. He comes in, he's coming in from Baton Rouge to Tyler, Texas. Take me back to what that experience was like when he showed up, and you realize, like, oh gosh, this is kind of next level. And I'm not sure if he was the person that kind of set that reality in for you, but what was it like seeing him show up?
Man, they weren't driving; they were taking that LSU jet, I think.
Good point. Good point.
All right. So recruitment from LSU was so at the time it was broken up in areas. Like different position coach had different geographical areas throughout the country. At that point, Kirk Dahl, who was the linebacker coach here at LSU, was East Texas. So I think he was Northern Louisiana, East Texas. I'm sure he had some other, but that was his area. He actually recruited Jacob Hester and I both out of high school. So he kind of got the process started, like the introductions. But at the time, Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator. And of course, great coach in his own right. Nick Saban, great coach. They're both young. At the time when I started getting recruiting, LSU had won an SEC championship, I think in 2001. But they weren't like the powerhouse that they were very soon to be, right? So Jimbo takes over the recruitment of quarterbacks, because at that year they wanted to take their goal is to recruit and sign 2 quarterbacks. So they made that clear up front to me. I go and I'm talking to Jimbo Fisher at first. This was probably, I don't know, the winter after my junior year of high school. Recruiting happened a lot later back then than it does now. I mean, you weren't getting recruited as a 8th, 9th, 10th grader. It happened after your junior season for most people. So they tell you we're taking 2 quarterbacks. So I'm like, all right, cool. I hadn't been offered a scholarship. I don't know if anybody at that time had been offered a scholarship. I'm sure there had been, but they gave me the list of everybody. So I get recruited. I go up to a drive down. Me and my dad drive down for a junior day, which is like they invite juniors to come in, recruit, introduce them, meet coaches, things like that. So at that point, I'd never physically met anybody. I drove down to LSU. We get there at night, and it was funny. We're like driving up, and I'm young and dumb. Like I hadn't really been traveled a lot. Like, we have like this big Exxon Mobil plant outside of Baton Rouge, like right on the river. So when you're driving in, like you see all the lights at the Exxon Mobil plant, and then like to the right of it's the state capitol building, and I'm like, oh my god, this place is huge. I thought it was a downtown skyline of all like this Exxon Mobil plant. I thought it was downtown skyline. I was like, man, this is a big old city, man. I didn't expect this. So we drive in. It's like, all right, well, we find out it wasn't that big of a city. It was big, but wasn't that big. We go to junior day, and I remember sitting there, and I had never seen anything really like it. I grew up a Baylor Bear fan. My dad played quarterback for the Baylor in the 60s. I'm youngest of 5. Most of my siblings went to Baylor. I grew up going to games at Floyd Casey Stadium in Waco, Texas, like every home game. Huge Baylor fan. So arriving at an SEC school, SEC stadium was a little bit different than what I was used to. So I'm in awe of the place. At that time, we were watching highlight videos of like Rohan Davey and Josh Reed, just like tearing it up. At that time, I was like, this is a place I want to go. Jimbo was a great recruiter, a great talker. He was like, I was like, man, I could play for this guy. So they recruit me. After that, I was like, man, at that point, I was like, all right, this is like a top 3 place for me, LSU. They come and recruit me. Jimbo tells a story to this day. He told it on our show about a month ago. He was one of our first guests when Hester and I started. He had come down, him, Nick Saban, and Kirkdall came down to watch me practice in the spring. And we didn't throw it a lot. I was in high school. I think we threw the ball probably like 7-8 times a game, something like that.
I wasn't going to say that, but
like
I was thinking that looking back at some of your numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we were like, we were run first, throw it if you have to. My head coach, he was an offensive lineman at Tulane back in the day. So he was a hard-nosed guy. So we threw it if we had to. And I probably me getting recruited forced them to throw the ball a little bit more than he wanted to, you know. But no, we had a really great high school program. And they came down in spring, and Nick Saban and Jimbo were like, all right, coach, we know you don't throw the ball. We would like to see him throw it in practice. And so we scheduled a full throwing only practice. And we threw, and we kind of lit it up. And after that, they offered me a scholarship pretty much on the spot after that practice. And Jimbo tells the story a lot better. He still remembers the stats from that practice. So they recruit me then, and I went down for a summer camp. And I'm getting long-winded on this answer because it was such a long, cool process. But one more part of that is because this is fresh in my mind, because I told it to my son the other day, because he had signed up for a camp and he didn't, after the first day, he didn't like it and he didn't want to do it. So, of course, as a dad, we were going to make him finish what he started. And I told him this story. Said I went down to training, summer mini camp. That's not mini camp, summer football camp for high schoolers. Go down to the bayou, and I'm from Tyler, Texas. It's still hot there. But I get to Baton Rouge, and it was the hottest place I'd ever been to. We're high school kids. We got our helmets on, football, and it was like training camp. Nick Saban was cussing people out, yelling. It was like legit, and it was miserable first day. And I was like, man, this sucks. So like, I remember after that first day at camp, I was like, Dad, let's get out of here. I'm not coming here. There's no way. Like, this coach is too similar to my high school coach. I kind of want to play for more of a player's coach, blah, blah, blah. It was hard. It was hot. And he was like, nope, you're staying for the whole thing. I was like, all right, I guess. So I reluctantly stayed, and fell in love with it the next day. And so after that, we went back home. And 2 days later, I called Jimbo and I said, I'd like to come to LSU. So that was it. The rest was history.
It's kind of amazing because recruiting has changed a whole lot, and there are a lot of coaches that would not be able to get away with yelling like that at a camp, and they would lose the 4-star quarterback recruit, and then be like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" Much has certainly changed. What do you remember about the day that that Nick Saban announced that he was going to Miami and leaving LSU?
Oh wow, I don't get asked that question a lot. So year 2, we had won the national championship my freshman year. I was redshirted. I was an integral part of that team. I was a decoy signaler on the sideline. Then my second year there was 2004. So I was a true freshman. Not true freshman. It was my first freshman eligible year. Sorry, people keep that. Go to the Capital One Bowl, and I believe it was the first day of practice, or the first day, I think as soon as we arrived to the Capital One Bowl in Orlando, we have a meeting. I believe it was a nighttime meeting where he all sits down and he tells us, like, look, I got this opportunity. And, it's those meetings are emotional, right? He tells us he's leaving, but I was 19 at the time. 19, second, hadn't really played a lot. Um, hadn't like found my foundation, my footing there, because as a young kid, every coaching staff, that's their job to like. And at that point, like once you sign, there's no transferring at that point. So like the freshmen get the brunt of everything, right? So at that point, it's like I didn't have like this huge like emotional attachment personally to any of the coaches, besides like Jimbo, my offensive people. So it didn't hit me as hard as it probably should have at the time, because like at that time, you know he's a good coach. You also know he's a hard coach to play for. And as a 19-year-old, you're not cognizant of like he's like what you need to be successful. This is a great teaching. At that moment, you're like, oh man, I guess the next next coach is gonna be easier or something like that. You know what I mean? We didn't really know what to think at the time. It's like we just got the Capital One Bowl. We're here for a week. We play in 7 days. We're gonna play hard. But yeah, it was a wild ride. Then it's at that point it's just a big question mark. Is Jimbo staying? Is all these coaches staying? Who all's leaving? Who's he taking with them? Obviously, who's the next head coach going to be? So it's just one of those deals where I don't really recall the emotional pull from it. But again, like you don't know how good you got it till it's gone type of deal. But it's on the other hand, we hired Les Miles and was a fantastic fit at the time. And we won a national championship with him, and I was the quarterback for that. So it's like you lose one great coach, you get somebody that's kind of the opposite. No, there's nothing about their coaching styles that is similar, besides the fact that they're really attention to detail and they hire good people around them. But other than that, there wasn't like similarity wise, there wasn't a lot. But we had two good ones in my career.
I was reading an old ESPN story on this. Your parents used to drive the 10 hours round trip to watch you hold footballs. That's incredible.
So my parents, they were so supportive in everything that I did and all my siblings did. And it's like something that I'm trying to make sure, and I do with my children. And it's hard. It's hard to do this, but like even going back to middle school, my dad would go to every practice in middle school, right? When I was 7th grade and I lost the job and I was a second string quarterback in 7th grade. And there was like 200 of these little rugrats running around, all with the same uniform and helmet on, same T-bone helmet, face mask. And he would make me wear like high blue baseball socks so he could pick me out like during practice. He went to every practice. He'd go to all my practices in high school, all my games. And through 5 seasons at LSU, with me only starting one full season, I think they only missed one game. Wow. That at home or away the entire time. And I believe the one game they missed, I believe it was because it got moved to a Monday night because of Hurricane Katrina.
The
I want to say it might have been the Arizona
Tennessee game.
Oh, it was
right?
a Tennessee game. That's right. There it was. You got it. I missed that one because it was on Monday night. I think my dad had to be in court or something.
Wow.
Yep. So it's incredible. So like again, it's one of those things like you don't know how good you got it till you are old enough to be cognizant of it and look back on it. Pretty incredible. I was very, very fortunate. So just some of those things that I'm trying to do as well, and realizing how incredibly difficult that is.
I'm sure you get asked a lot about Jamarcus Russell, but I've always had this weird fascination with Ryan Perrilloux. What's a story that just kind of sticks out with him? And I know it didn't obviously end the way that he had hoped, the way that everybody thought it would at LSU. But what's a memory that you have of him and all the time that you spent with him?
Oh, good question. Ryan, when you come in to the state college in your home state, when the number one recruit in the country, number one recruit, like, I don't know, of all time or whatever it is, like, there's a lot of pressure to live up to, and there's a lot of hype to live up to that. He was a guy that what happened towards the back hand of his career was it was difficult to see. Difficult to see how it all kind of ended here at LSU. I don't know all the details on it, but I know that LSU got put in a bad position when that did happen. Because at the time, it didn't seem like our quarterback room, we weren't taking quarterbacks every year at the time. So it wasn't like 4 or 5 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster at all times. I remember when I think it was when I started in the Peach Bowl. I think in 2005, Jamarcus and I might have been the only scholarship quarterbacks on the roster, and Jamarcus didn't make the trip. So, like, we had me and a walk-on as a backup, and it was just one of those deals. I don't know that's probably why LSU struggled after the 2007 season at the quarterback position for a little while, was because of the incidences that happened with Ryan and the way that whole thing ended, because we had a really great quarterback at a young Jarrett Lee that was talented, uber talented, in the classic case of getting thrown in there too early. And then all of a sudden that kind of ruined his confidence for a little while. He just played way too early when he shouldn't have been playing. It should have been parallel playing. So how it all ended, I don't know the details. It's tough, but I do know. I will give you one story about how uber confident Ryan was. And I mean, he was a great player, great arm, had all the talent in the world, man, had all the talent. And I had to work my ass off to stave him off. Like, I had thought about transferring my junior year because Jamarcus was it was 2006. He was on his run, and where he eventually became the #1 overall draft pick. And I was like, well, with the same classification, like, I'm not going to be able to, like, I can't stay here unless he goes to the draft. And of course he did. But even after that happened, like, I wasn't guaranteed the spot. Like, I remember, like, Les Miles telling me, he's like, I'm not just giving you these keys to the car because it's a beautiful car. And, like, I got to make sure you earn these keys. So, like, I even had to compete that year. So Ryan pushed and pushed and pushed. I just worked my ass off, and I knew that it was my time. But I remember when he did come in, he was saying, so he said something like, there was this quote because I remember reading the quote, something like, yeah, I think my first year I'll I don't know, I'll be in New York or something like that. I'll beat Jamarcus out. And he said, I already know I'm better than Matt. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's fine. But I look back on it. At the time, it gave me fuel, right? But I look back on it. That's the kind of confidence I want in my quarterback, right? That's the kind of confidence we want in quarterback. So, like I said, in-state guy, one of the top recruits of all time, coming out of Louisiana, and going to the in-state school. Yeah, you're dang right. You earn that confidence. Got to go earn it past that for sure. But yeah, it was just a shame how it all ended. It kind of put LSU behind the 8-ball a little bit at quarterback position. And I think that was kind of the start of the snowball effect. And you saw it for, really until Mettenberger came. Mettenberger kind of, righted the ship for a little while. But I mean, almost a decade of offenses that really didn't live up to the LSU name.
Of all the memories you could draw back on for '07, the one that always stands out to me, at least from the people that I've talked to, most notably Hester, obviously, the 2007 SEC championship. You guys win that as a 2-loss team. Nobody thinks LSU is going to a national championship because of everything that's going to happen with Pitt and West Virginia, all that stuff. But you guys thought you were going to die on the plane ride home.
Yeah.
Did you think that you were going to die in that moment?
Yes, 100%. First of all, I don't like flying. Like, if everything, especially since I've had kids, but like every time I'm on a plane, it's like every single noise, I'm like looking over my shoulder. I look at the flight attendants to see if they're panicking. Like, it's just, the older I get, the less I like it, but I've never really loved it. But yeah, so we played Tennessee in the SEC championship. Of course, like, we lost in triple overtime on the last game of the regular season against Arkansas. Those jerks, Derek McFadden, Dan McFadden, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis, they all had like over 100 yards rushing on us that game. What a stud trio that was. So we don't really think we have a chance because there's so many things that happened, but we probably should have known there was a chance because if you go back and look at the 2007 season, probably the wildest in college football history, as far as number one's losing, number two's losing, just a back and forth. I mean, I don't know if anybody held on to one or two spot for more than like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks tops. Like it was so back and forth. So we win the game. I was actually hurt that game. I didn't get to play, which stunk. Because I wanted to play Tennessee bad. Because I wanted to go there as a high school and they never recruited me. But anyway, that's another story. But we play them, we win. We're on the plane. And at that time, there's no cell phones. There's no like on-air Wi-Fi or anything, of course. So you get on the plane, and you're blacked out from information. One person that does get information is the pilot because he's talking down to ground control, and they're speaking to him. So ground control knows he's flying the LSU, and so ground control is giving him score updates. Who was it? I think it was West Virginia Pitt.
Yeah, backyard brawl.
West Virginia. Yep, exactly. So I think Pitt beat West Virginia. So he's giving us score updates, and then he comes on the microphone. He's like, update, Pittsburgh blah, West Virginia blah, Pittsburgh won, whatever. And so we knew that was the last piece that would actually open the door for the BCS computer to like take over and do its thing potentially. And so we celebrate. Everyone's jumping up. We're high-fiving, like absolute pandemonium in the plane. And all of a sudden, we must have hit like the biggest like pocket of turbulence air you've ever seen in your life, because it felt like the plane just dropped like 5,000 feet. They were just been in a free fall, and so everybody like hunkers down. Everyone's quiet, death quiet in there. Everyone's still. Like this wasn't like normal like rough air. This was a complete drop of a plane, not nose down, but it just like flat, just went drop really fast. So after that, we were super scared, and that was it. Jacob said that he said this the other day because we got asked by somebody what our favorite Skip Bertman story was. So we were captains, so we were kind of up in the front of the plane, and I guess Skip Bertman was sitting in front of us. And apparently, when we were celebrating, he remembers distinctly that I kissed Skip Bertman on top of the head while I was celebrating. I don't know. I don't remember this, but he did.
I think there's probably a lot of things from that ride that you'd like to be able to forget and just black out from memory.
Exactly, no doubt.
Last one for you before I get you out on some rapid fire. January 1st, 2012. For those that don't know, YouTube it. It's the best backup quarterback performance in NFL history. You had 6 touchdown passes. Look, I'm a Bears fan. I wasn't bitter at all that day that the Packers are starting their first quarterback, not named Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre in 20 years, and he just throws 6 touchdown passes like it's no big deal. Whatever, wasn't bitter. How often do you just daydream about that day?
Yeah, that was obviously a cool day. That's a pretty cliche answer. That season we were 13. We were coming off a Super Bowl champion. We were Super Bowl champions in 2010.
I know,
so
Matt. I know. Yeah, you were.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I know we beat y'all 4 times in one calendar season.
Yep.
Let's see. So we're 13-0 the following year as the reigning Super Bowl champs. So like, man, we're pretty good. We end up going to Kansas City, and Todd Haley just got fired. We got beat by the first week. We got bit by the interim bug. The interim coach always wins, right? So Romeo Crennel was interim coach of Kansas City, beat us. We fall to 13-1. If they wouldn't have beaten us, I wouldn't have ever gotten that opportunity to play in the last game because, of course, we would have gone for an undefeated season. So that loss, which stinks as in Packers lore, but it actually opened the door for me to be able to play that Week 17 game against the Lions. And people forget that Lions team actually made the playoffs in a time where they were not very good. So they played all their people because they were playing for seeding at the time. And it was a wild game because it was like 15 degrees, 16 degrees, and windy. I remember going out there before the game. And we had a tarp on the field because, like, in Lambeau Field, there's coils under the field that keep it warm. Like they heat the ground up so the ground doesn't freeze. So it's like actually a playable, softer surface. Now it can't work miracles, but it does keep it like semi-warm. So they put a tarp on it to keep that warmth on the field, so it doesn't like just evaporate or go up in the air. But I remember that tarp was just blowing in the air because it was so windy. And this is a noon game. There's usually not that much juice in a noon game, but we're going out there. The Lions players like have their shirts on and the shirts off, like, being tough and stuff like that. And, our linemen are like, no, we're wrapping up with like hoodies and gloves and scarves and everything. Right. Cause we've done this. Y'all play indoors every day. So we got there. It's just one of those games that everything worked. Called the right plays. Aaron Rodgers, he was sitting out, so he called all the plays in the first half of the game just to kind of keep him engaged all week in the game plan and what we were doing. He called the plays, so he was the one talking to me on the first half. Then Mike McCarthy took over the second half. But man, everything we were doing was working for us. It was also working for them as well. So you're going to a cold environment, windy, and there was exactly 1,000 yards passing that game. I threw for 480. Matt Stafford threw for 520. I believe Calvin Johnson was like 350 yards receiving or something crazy in that game. So it was just pretty much who was going to get the ball last. We scored with a little bit of time left. They got it, and I think we got an interception at the end to seal it. But I mean, certainly a game that was a life changer for me, just because of the timing of how professional football works and contracts and everything like that. But when I think back on it, I got that game and 2013 Dallas Cowboy game where I came back to Green Bay after a couple of stops that were not successful for me in this for being a full-time starter. But coming back, and then I got to play the Cowboys in Jerry World in 2013, kind of coming back off a rocky road of a season and a half of a rocky road. And I think we had like a 25-3 deficit at halftime. We came back and won. And those two games are like the memorable ones. One, because it set me up for the rest of my career. Then the other one was because, all right, I know I can do this. I know I'm still supposed to be here. I know that, a competitor's mindset, other people made bad decisions. So I know I can still come and do this, right? So, yeah, those are two pretty cool moments for me.
I'm always convinced that it always had to be in that exact uniform. That's just the way that
Yeah,
it's always going
yeah,
to work, and I'm just going to have to live with that and accept it and move on. This has been great, man. Really appreciate you doing this. I want to get you out of here with some rapid fire, just 5 questions. First thing that comes to mind. Does
sure.
that work for you? All right.
Yeah.
First one. What is the loudest SEC road venue that you've experienced? And it can't be Tiger Stadium.
A lot of SEC road game. Probably, probably Auburn. I mean, there's so many good ones. So many good. We had some tight games with Auburn. We had tight games with everybody, but yeah, we'll just go with Auburn.
Which coach was the scariest when mad? Saban, Jimbo, Muschamp, or the wild card, Pelini?
I'll say, I'll say Saban because I didn't deal with them a whole lot. Jimbo was certainly mad and scary, but also Jimbo's going to put his arm around me when practice is over and like teach me, right?
True.
Saban was just, he was a defensive guy. He wasn't teaching any offensive guys afterwards. He was just yelling.
You can only pick one to eat: Texas barbecue or Cajun.
Cajun.
That's the correct answer. That is.
Yeah.
That definitely is.
Can't go wrong. I mean, you can't go wrong, but
Cajun's right. You can there are other barbecues. There are not other Cajuns. That's the difference.
That's exactly.
What was the first thing you bought when you got that Seahawks contract?
Good question. I don't like have this monumental purchase that I did. When I made because in year 3 I bought myself a car. My parents had bought me my car that I used in college, and I said if I make it 3 years in the NFL, I'm going to buy myself a car. I bought myself a car year 3. This is the answer right here. I bought my wife an engagement ring, my girlfriend at the time. So we got engaged in Seattle. So there you go.
That's a good answer. That's a really, really good answer. All right, last one for you. You can't get this wrong. Like if you get this wrong, you're gonna have some serious points deducted. But not that we're keeping track. Clear eyes, full hearts, can't.
Clear eyes, full hearts. Full eyes, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
There you go. All right. You were stumbling for a second there. If you didn't say can't lose, I'm not going to say you're going to get revoked Texas citizenship, but at a time like now, I mean, that's obviously very important.
That's right. Exactly. We got there, though. We got there. Jake will tell you I stumble over my words all the time. I do it for 3 hours every morning.
Look, you're good. By the time we're going to be doing this at this time next year, you're going to be a seasoned vet. You'll have been to one SEC media days already. You'll be good to go. Matt,
exactly.
Really appreciate you doing this. We'll see you in person in a couple weeks at SEC Media Days.
Yeah, Connor, looking forward to it. Looking forward to meeting you. looking forward to chopping it up with everybody, and might as well just dive in head first, right?
Love it. I'll leave the
SEC
Bears.
Media Day.
I'll leave the Bears helmet at home. Won't be bringing that with.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sounds good. I won't bring my Packers one.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I appreciate that.
All right.
All right. Well, let's close with some lad of the week. I have one that's SEC focused. You mind if I start?
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I'm going to go with Joe Castiglione, the Oklahoma athletic director, long time Oklahoma athletic director who's been there for 28 years. He is retiring at the end of the school year. I think Pete Thamel's report was that at some point during the school year. I know George Stoya reported that it was going to be at the end of the school year. Anyway, retirement tour for someone who very much deserves it. They're going to have a pretty significant search to fill that vacancy at Oklahoma. Big time shoes to be able to fill. Someone that I feel like we've mentioned a lot on the podcast as relates to Venables, but been in that role for 28 years, hired 3 football coaches, and obviously negotiated the move to the SEC, a big part of his legacy and what he's going to be known for, but also probably deserves some credit for standing pat 2010 when Texas going to the Pac-12, Oklahoma going to the Pac-12, realignment, is it going to be happening? And then having the presence of mind to recognize they had a pretty nice opportunity that was shaping up in the 2010s. And then boom, they were the Big 12 team of the 2010s in college football. So, I mean, just one of these places that I think can cast a really, really wide net with the resources, the non-football sports, obviously softball. I know the dynasty died kind of sort of this year, but just prides itself on being an everything school. We can debate how many everything schools are as good as Oklahoma and this and that and the other, but really does pride itself on having a variety of these like high level varsity sports. So it's going to be interesting in the SEC on a couple of fronts, because I think Mississippi State AD Zach Selman is going to be a popular name to throw around for that job. I don't know that he would take it.
They keep hiring great ADs, and people just swoop in and take them.
John Cohen, TBD on the John Cohen thing.
They keep hiring ADs with a market. How about that?
Yeah, because John Cohen obviously left for Auburn.
Yeah.
And so Mississippi State's already had an AD poached in the 2020s by an SEC school. So we'll wait and see on that. But in the more immediate future, what does it mean for Brent Venables? That's a question I kind of keep coming back to, because Castiglione's now considered a lame duck AD. Will he get to fire and then hire a coach? I don't know. Will they have someone hired for that role by then, who then is kind of the D'Angelo Vickers to Michael Scott? I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it ends up better for their version of D'Angelo Vickers. Either way, I think long-term for Venables, maybe you'll disagree with this, it's a bad development.
Yep.
I really think that.
Yeah.
Like, your boss was the guy who never had to fire a coach in the 21st century, who not only hired you, but gave you a post year 2 extension right around this time last year. No matter who your new boss is, you don't have that type of equity with whoever they are. And if Oklahoma football is not competing for a playoff spot this year, or if they're not at least like 8-4, that immediately becomes the first order of business for Castiglione's successor. And maybe they stand pat and opt to not pay a $35 million buyout upon arrival, and they can kind of kick the can if it's a 7-5 season that shows some offensive improvement. I don't know. But alternatively, maybe that AD, whoever that's going to be, is going to want to make their stamp immediately. I just don't know. But I think these are fascinating times in Norman, and the guy who was the most steady force in that athletic department is now going to be moving on to a different phase in his life, and a different phase, I think, for Oklahoma athletics.
Yeah, an absolute legend in the industry, kind of guided Oklahoma and I mean, great note about the Pac-12 thing, because how radically different.
That.
Talking about, like a sliding doors moment where the Pac-12 could just be this force if they were able to close that deal. But, they will be a different place if the Pac-12 knew how to close any type of deal, right? And so, point being, it's kind of like he was there to shepherd you into the SEC, and you want like another guy to kind of take over from there. I think the timeline's really perfect. And that's the thing about Oklahoma. They've done things, I feel, with class. Maybe somebody will be in my mention saying, oh, they fired their baseball coach 10 years ago, whatever. But like from what I've seen, it seems like, to your point, not having to fire a head coach and really just being able to say, hey, assuming we don't have a 2-win season, out in Norman, it's like, okay, we've seen enough out of Venables to where we're at least not going to make a move during his tenure probably, and kind of, to your point, kick the can down the road. So once again, Oklahoma kind of handling things the right way.
It's one of those things that just add it to the Venables file.
Yep.
Add it to the job security conversation with him of what's it going to look like, who's going to get to make that decision. And it probably will depend on whether or not they get a candidate lined up and kind of what their motives are. But I don't know that you can just assume that this will be Joe Castiglione's decision to kind of usher out and kind of guide with a new athletic director, when obviously, as much as they want to be in everything school, as much as they are considered an everything school, so much of of how you're evaluated publicly and internally really comes down to whether or not you're leading a successful football program in Norman.
Yeah, if I'm Venables, I want to call Scott Frost. First thing I can do, start talking about what's your record in one-score games. Okay, start getting the PR together because that guy put on a master class. So I think you just get that ammo ready to go.
Who says you can't go home? Well,
everyone, it appears. It doesn't.
Apparently, Scott Frost says you can't go home. Orlando is clearly his home.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, for ladder week, this week, a little bit on board, off board, as far as is it SEC. Ben Shelton, the American tennis pro. So he advanced to the quarterfinal. He's a 22-year-old dude from Atlanta, right? So that's like the heart of America. That's SEC country. And of course, he had to talk to the British media, right? And part of that was Sky Sports correspondent basically tried to talk American football with him. And she asked him like, hey, I've heard that you played a little bit of American football. You played a quarterbacker. How was that? And
nice.
He was super sweet about it. He barely even he almost took another step back and kind of looked at the crowd and was like, I don't expect anyone to understand this sport. It's kind of weird. It's got like this oblong, brown ball. And I'm just here for the international. He was not like, what do you mean you don't know what a quarterback is? He was just very humble and made it seem like he was the weirdo. And I mean, it just seems like a really sweet dude. It's been a while since we've had a true American, tennis star on the men's side, at least. I want to leave out, the Williams and Serena and all the great things that have happened on the women's side for Americans. But yeah, it's just kind of seeing this guy for the first time and seeing him be humble and see him kind of take that little almost SEC themed question of hey, you're not in Atlanta anymore. So it was pretty cool.
What high school did he go to in Atlanta?
I was actually just looking for that, man. It looks like Buchholz High School. So that is in, wow, is that APS? No, that one's in Gainesville. So it looks like he moved from SEC country to SEC country.
I was going to say, because if you're really good at high school, you don't play high school tennis. That's not something you do.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the kid that was unbelievable growing up, this kid named Jonas Schwartz, who ironically enough ended up playing college tennis at Emory and in Atlanta, and was somebody that was very, very decorated at the high school level. And he stopped playing after his freshman year when he won state and realized he should just not mess around with this anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're good, you go on to do bigger and better things. But I'll tell you what, if someone asked me in a public setting about being a quarterbacker when I was 22, I don't think I would have answered the question the same way. I think I would have just made fun of that person. And again, not proud of it. That's just the person that I was at 22. Probably was still that person a little bit later in life, but I would not have approached it with the same sort of grace. So shout out to Ben.
And also, apparently, according to his Wikipedia, he is dating Trinity Rodman. So this guy's winning at life, actually. This guy might be lad of the year. He is advancing at Wimbledon, handling the media well. He's obviously, got the game. He knows how to handle himself. So good for him, man. Moving from Atlanta to Gainesville is also a pretty interesting move. So I'm a fan. What little I know, I respect your game, son.
Seriously. Wow. The stories that he'll be able to tell at some point. Can you imagine sitting down?
Florida. I poorly introduced this guy. Wow, this is an SEC athlete. Good for him.
Can you imagine sitting down with a girl that you're dating for the first time, and maybe you don't know her last name, or maybe you do, and then she kind of tells you what it is, and you have to process at some point. I don't know how soon this is going to be, but if this works, I'm having man-to-man conversations with Dennis Rodman, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't. I don't know what their relationship is. I don't know kind of how that dynamic works, but I would be thinking about that the entire time. As I sit here and wear a Bulls shirt. This is a Horace Grant shirt. It's not a Bulls shirt. My Bulls fandom. I think we're done. I think we're done. I think I've moved on to all things Magic. This is a Horace shirt. Let the record show.
It's just gonna be Magic fans, man. It's terrible over here too.
It's Atlanta made some nice moves.
I'm talking about the Pelicans, brother. I'm not an Atlanta sports fan.
Oh gosh, good point. You said over here, and my head went to Atlanta. Obviously, you're a Pelicans fan. I forgot. My bad. Yeah, let's just be Magic fans. Hey, let's do it. I got the Paolo jersey that I'm getting in September. Did I tell you about that? The new Magic jerseys, which are fire. I mean, they're the take on the '90s jerseys with the pinstripes and all that stuff. I made a comment to Lauren about them, and she decided for Father's Day, in addition to going to the water park for the entire day and whatnot, and we had a great time, she ordered me a Apollo jersey and the new logo, the new jersey. They're on back order until September. So in September, when they're ready to go, I will have to go to the stadium and go to the actual pro shop to get my Apollo jersey, my new Apollo jersey.
Fire, dude. That's gonna be
an awesome day. A jersey day like that, I'm truly looking forward to it. I don't know what that has to do with what we're talking about, but
Rodman,
I'm excited.
Bulls, we're Magic fans. Yeah, fired up.
Talking season's here. Soon enough, Jersey Day is going to be here. Can't wait. I'll have to wear it on the pod. It'll be something I very much I'll be tweeting about as well. I can promise you that. All right, we'll be tweeting a lot about media days next week. SEC media days. We are going to have so much coverage. I cannot wait for it. As I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, if you're getting in the daily fantasy space, Dabble is the place to do it. Promo code SDS2, $25 in bonus cash, no deposit required. Please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every single episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at Sat Down South, at TJ O'Gara, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.